Good morning, Sonder fam. Welcome to our Sunday morning weekly setup. My name is Bailey Grady, if you don't already know, and I'll be your facilitator this morning. I see lots of familiar names in the chat. Welcome. Always good to see you. And then I also saw we had a few first-timers joining us, so very special welcome to all of you. You picked a good one to join. Not just because the weekly setup can be a great thing to add into your routine, especially when you're first getting started and you need ideas, but because we do have a pretty good group of what I would say seasoned Sonder veterans, if you will, which means that not only will you get some good ideas from me and up on the screen, but also from them in the chat. So make sure, speaking of the chat, that you have that little blue box set to everyone, because that is how you'll be interacting with each other. You'll notice like you don't have the option to turn your camera on or unmute, so you don't have to worry about if you're unmuted or your camera is on or anything. I'll be the only one up on screen for the most part today. And then the other person here with me from Silk and Sonder's side is Maya. She's my wonderful right-hand lady stage manager today, so she'll be helping out in the chat. And I will help out in the chat as well when I'm not on screen. I'm not the best multitasker. But Maya is there to help out anytime that you may need us and to kind of make sure that we keep things rolling and that we're all having a good time. But in order to share in that chat, you do want it set to everyone, because if it's set to host and panelists, and a lot of the times it will default to that setting, only myself and Maya will be able to see it. So be sure you have it set to everyone so that way you can share it with the group. I saw lots of you enjoying our opening song, a little Taylor Swift this morning. I'm not a Swiftie by any means, because I feel like you have to have degrees in Taylor Swift to be a Swiftie these days. But she does have a couple albums that I like, and I really love that song. And I do feel like it just invokes this sense of freedom. So it was a good thing to kick off our morning with. So let's go ahead and run through our community guidelines. As always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and to others. No promotions or spam, please. We are going to respect everyone's privacy here, and of course, we do not allow any hate speech or bullying. This is going to be a safe space. We like to be vulnerable here and do lots of good sharing and build our community, and none of that can happen if we don't have that safe environment. And try to limit repetitive product and accessory questions. Maya and I are happy to answer anything that we can answer, but there are certain things that we will have to redirect you to the customer care team for at hello@silkandsonder.com. So if we send you that way, it's because it's something that we don't have the answer to. And then finally, Sonder Social are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So what that means is, like I said, sometimes we like to get a little deep here. We like to get into some topics that really make us think and spend some time with ourselves and reflect. And sometimes that means that we can encounter what I like to call the crunchy feelings. We start to get into some spaces that maybe we haven't fully cleaned out that closet of our mind just yet, or our hearts, right? And maybe today is not the day to clean out the closet. And so if that's the case, anything starts to not feel great, it just doesn't feel like the right time for you to engage with a particular prompt or anything, that's okay. You can take a step back. You can come back to it later, or not at all. You can just jam out to the music until we move on to something else. You can color in the coloring page. We want this time to be for you and whatever you need that to be. So if you have already set up your journal and you're just here to enjoy time with the community, awesome, welcome. If you haven't set up your journal yet and you just want to focus on that and you're not feeling particularly chatty today, that is great too. Do all of it, do some of it, do none of it, whatever speaks to you today. This time is for you. It is something you have carved out for yourself. So it's important that you're taking that time and whatever you need it to be. So today we are going to do our Freedom Mind Map prompt. And for those of you that are new, this is something that is unique to the weekly setup. So we obviously have our monthly theme, and this month it's freedom. But at the beginning of the weekly setups each week, we will have a special prompt only found in the weekly setups that is geared towards the theme of the month, and we call it our mind map. So we'll be doing that first, and then we will do a rosebud thorn reflection, which allows us to kind of think back on the last 7 days before we move into the week ahead. And then we'll get into that main event, that weekly setup, trying to get us all ready to go and prepared for the week ahead, whatever that may mean. So as I mentioned, and as I hope you already know at this point, it is August 18th, if you can believe that. We are more than halfway through the month at this point. Our theme is freedom. And freedom is something that is really personal to each of us. It's going to mean something very different to you than it might be for me, or we might have a very similar definition. You never know. And it's going to hit different ways depending on what you're focusing it on. But it is a theme that when you say freedom and when you ask somebody to think about that word and how it makes them feel, it's something that I do think all of us feel somewhere. It is a very, not just personal because it's unique feeling, but personal because it is something that I think has been with us for most of our lives in one way or another, whether we're chasing it or embracing it or whatever that looks like. So I can only speak to my personal definition of freedom, which for me is all about the ability to make choices without any sort of outside influence. And so what that looks like for me is, freedom is not necessarily I get to do whatever I want. I would love for it to be that. But it doesn't always mean I get to do whatever I want, because sometimes it means that I have chosen things that come along with other responsibilities or requirements. Like, for example, I have chosen to move forward in my career, right? Like, I accepted a promotion about a year ago. And so that came with new responsibilities and things. It's, I have to work a little harder now. I can't just always, take off in the same way that I could before. It also comes with benefits for sure, like higher pay and sometimes more flexibility, but sometimes less flexibility. It just sort of depends on what's going on. And maybe you are furthering something in your education, right? If that's the case, then you have to go to school, you have to do your homework, you have to do these things. You can't just like do whatever you want on a Saturday. Maybe instead you have to study, right? So freedom's not always a license to do whatever we want, but it should be a license for us to make decisions about what we want. So you are deciding to further your education. I decided to move up in my career, right? Maybe you've decided to retire, or you've decided to take on a new hobby or move to a different place, right? A lot of the times the choices around freedom can be significant, but they also can be really small decisions. I've been trying to work on my physical health for what feels like forever. And this whole year for me, I've just really not been motivated by it. And my boss is very physically active. She's really good about taking care of herself. And she always just tells me, when you're ready to do it, you will, when you're ready. And she's right, because even though I want to do it, I can feel that I haven't like made that choice to really buckle down, to really commit to it, right? And when I do, and when I'm ready, I will. But so for me, freedom also can come with limitations, but if they're limitations from yourself, is what I'm trying to say, then it's not necessarily an infringement on your freedom. As long as they're limitations you've placed on yourself, it's not somebody else or something else stopping you from doing what you want to do, then for me, it still fits into that definition of freedom. I am somebody that, as most of you know, struggles with anxiety. And so sometimes because of that anxiety, my body makes decisions for me. I don't necessarily get a choice because my energy is depleted or I'm going into a situation where I just can't handle it that day. And sometimes that feels like freedom's being taken away. And it's hard. And I think it's always hard. But the reality is that for better or worse, that is something that is a part of me. It's part of who I am. It's something I have to kind of live with and learn to work around and remind myself that my anxiety is trying to help me. If you all haven't seen Inside Out 2, I highly recommend it. But my anxiety is trying to help me. She's just a little misguided. So she means well. She's just a little out of control, and that's okay. But she's a part of me. It's not somebody else or something else stopping me. So whatever freedom means to you, I encourage you to engage with it, spend time with it this month, continue to look at those prompts and figure out ways to make sure that the choices you are making are your choices and that they are absolute yeses. And if they're not an absolute yes, try to work on that word that's really hard for a lot of us, which is saying no. So without further ado, let's get into our freedom mind map. So like I mentioned before, we're going to use this mind map to explore freedom in different areas of our lives and think about how we can achieve a sense of freedom or remember what it felt like when we had that feeling of freedom in a particular area. And this week, we are going to ask you about emotional freedom. This is a good one. So think about a situation or relationship where you felt emotionally constrained or restricted. What were the key factors that contributed to this feeling? How can you work towards emotional freedom in your life, allowing yourself to feel and express your emotions authentically? And it doesn't say this in the prompt, but obviously, since we're asking you to recall a time where you felt constrained or restricted, you could also, if you're not in that situation anymore, you could also think about how you got out of it, how you came out of that moment, how do you keep those moments from happening again, right? So this is a really great prompt. For me, and I will go back to the other slide, don't panic. For me, what I wrote about is I said, I was emotionally restrained and restricted for the majority of my young life. Anger and passion were easily accessible to me, but most other emotions felt out of reach or pushed down, only spilling out if I couldn't hold it any longer and never in a healthy way. Through lots of therapy, meditation, and self-care, I've learned to truly feel my emotions and to see them as a partner to me rather than a threat. I also continue to set boundaries to ensure my emotions are respected and that I am only taking responsibility for my emotions and not that of others. It is a challenge at times, and I'm still working to get better. So that's my reflection and journey with it. And if you are not sure what taking on the emotions of others might feel like, or what it might feel like to not have emotional boundaries, we've got this helpful little graphic here. So if you do not have emotional boundaries and maybe need to set some, sometimes that can feel like being responsible for other people's feelings. Sometimes it might feel like it's your fault if other people feel bad. It's your job to save them, their job to save you, and their fault if you feel bad. And all of those are not true, right? So if you ever feel those feelings, if those are coming up, then you might need to look at setting some sort of emotional boundaries. Your feelings are valid. You have every right to feel whatever emotion you want. You aren't being dramatic. You're not over exaggerating. You're just feeling, and that's okay. It's okay to feel your feelings, and you do need to feel your feelings. You cannot outthink your feelings, which is a tough lesson I've had to learn. You have to feel them, and you're not responsible for other people's emotions or actions. So I will hop between these slides for reference for you all. Definitely let us know in the chat what is coming up for you, what you're writing down here, so that we can help support you and also celebrate in those times where you've maybe overcome some of these situations. And then we'll come back together and move on to our next thing. Thank you all for taking some time to reflect on this. If you're still reflecting, if you're still working on it, that is okay. You can hop back to it whenever we go to move into another section if you get a little extra time or anything like that. Thank you all for sharing as well. I can see like we have a lot of similar experiences and reactions to things that we had in our lives, right? That has kind of given us either some new perspective and empowerment around this, or maybe we've struggled a little bit. It's still something that you're still working on, like me. But I think awareness is everything, and just being able to talk and share about it is half the battle. And like I said, it seems like all of us kind of have a little bit of something in common with this. I know, like, shocking, right? Like, oh my gosh, what? We're similar. We're all here with our journals working on ourselves, and we're working on ourselves. Imagine that. But that's why these activities are so great, is because sometimes it can feel like you're the only one working on this kind of thing. So to get together with an amazing group like you all and see that you're not alone is very, very helpful. So we are now going to move into our rosebud thorn. And this is something that does appear in your journal each and every week. And so this week's, I can flip to get mine open here. If you want to do it in the journal, is on page 44, but you can really do a rosebud thorn exercise anytime, anywhere. It's a great way to kind of reflect with some balance. But we are going to reflect on a rose, which is going to be a highlight, something good, something positive, or, sometimes a rose is just that, like, today is the start of a new week. A bud is an emerging opportunity. It might be something you're excited about, something you're nervous about, just something new. And then a thorn is a challenge, something maybe not so going so well, something that's been tough, that sort of thing. So I always like to do mine in reverse. So my thorn is that I've just not been doing well on hydration and sleep this week. It's just been a little bit of a struggle. I'm trying to get back in the habits, but it's a little tough. And then my bud is that my work officially announced our office relocation Friday. We've kind of known that this was potentially coming, but it's a little tough. I have a 10-minute commute right now, and this move will definitely change that. I will probably go more towards like the nature of a 30 to 45-minute commute. And while that's not the worst thing in the world, it's definitely not 10 minutes. So and a lot of people I work with will have significantly larger commutes. So we don't know what that's going to do, if people are going to decide to leave and that sort of thing. So yeah, just a lot of uncertainty and change, but we've kind of known it's coming. It is nice to know where we're going officially. And I am actually familiar with the area. So again, as somebody with anxiety, that was really helpful that I actually know exactly where this is. I know how to get to it. It's actually pretty easy to get to. And ironically, it's actually an office complex where my cousin works as well, and a lot of our friends. So the bright spot there is that I'll have like a new group of people to probably do lunch with and maybe do hangouts after work and stuff. So that part I'm looking forward to, just not the drive. And then my rose is that I'm finally feeling better after having COVID. I got it again like 2 weeks ago, and it was not a fun time. It never is. But it definitely had some like lingering fatigue and stuff. And I think I'm finally starting to feel back to normal. So that's definitely my rose. So I will put on some music for you to think about your rosebud and thorn. Let us know in the chat. So again, we can support you on those thorns, celebrate with you on those roses, and be there for one another. Please continue to share your rosebud thorns if you haven't shared them in the chat yet. I always love reading through those because, again, it kind of takes us to that sense of community. We all have good things going on that we can celebrate. Again, sometimes that thing is that last week is over and we have a new week, and we all have weeks like that, so we know how that feels. But we also have like things we struggle with and kind of new exciting things or scary things. And so it's nice to know that we're not alone in some of those things. And there's often somebody that's been through it as well. So we kind of have that community wisdom to guide us a little bit. We are now going to move into our main event, which is our weekly planner. So this is my full spread up on the screen, but we'll be diving into each one of these sections together. And this week's pages are 46 and 47. So we are going to start with how we want to feel. So thinking about, okay, new week, fresh start. What does the next 7 days look like for me? How do I want to feel as I move through these 7 days? What do I have going on? Do I need to channel a particular feeling, right? And if you are somebody that is like, I don't know what I have going on, I have to wrap my head around it first, that is okay. That's me a lot of weeks too. So we're starting with this, but if you need to start with, your to-dos first and then come back to this to kind of figure out what feeling you want to channel, that is totally okay. For me, I'm continuing to change this to this week I want to embrace, because embrace is my word of the year. So this week I want to embrace patience and possibility because, again, they just announced this office move on Friday. I have a team of 7 people that I manage. So there's going to be a lot of feelings and things going into Monday, I'm sure. So just trying to channel patience and possibility. And I probably should add maybe a little positivity into that as well. But there are some other good feelings up on the screen for inspiration, as well as these fun examples from our Sonder fam. So I'll put on some quick little music for you to think about how you want to feel. All right, we are now going to move down to our weekly major three goals and weekly to-dos. If you have done a setup with me before, you know that I like to combine these sections together, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I always list out my to-dos as like appointments and things that I have going on through the week, and I use the little calendar to circle when those appointments are happening, so I have that visual reference. And then I kind of have a running kind of catch-all to-do list that I just like continue to write on there until I like get things done or add to it. You can see like I organized my pantry the other day. So I had already kind of written this out and then I got to cross that off and it feels really good. And then for my weekly major three, I'm actually trying something different this week. So I'm doing the life coach beta. And one of the things that it does in there is it gives you like custom affirmations based on like the goals and things that you've told it you want to focus in on. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm plugged into that a little bit better. So I will write those down here instead of like a weekly major three, because I write down a weekly major three, but I found out I don't always like stick to that. So I think that this might work a little bit better for me anyway. But a lot of folks will kind of marry these two sections together. So you can see like in the top right, they've got, or sorry, top left, they've got housework, yard work, and training. And then like that first line on the left part of the page are their to-dos that go with housework, and then the middle goes with yard work, and then the bottom goes with training. Same thing with like the balance, budget, and bylaws. So kind of just taking some things there on those weekly major three and then figuring out what to-dos actually support those major three goals. And I will cycle through all of these slides for you once we put on some music. If you have a super busy week ahead and you need to kind of figure out what you actually have the capacity to do, because sometimes we like to put unrealistic expectations on ourselves, right? I don't know what you're talking about. I never do that. The Eisenhower matrix can kind of help you sort through that list and figure out what's actually urgent and not urgent, what can wait, what has to be done now, can you delegate it, right? Do you have to be the one to take that on? Kind of going back to that conversation we had before, right? About some of us have a tendency to be like, well, I'll just handle that or I'll just do that thing because that person won't be able to. But if that person is an adult, maybe they need to handle it and you got to let go a little bit and it's really hard. The Pomodoro technique is also super helpful if, like me, you struggle with executive dysfunction. In addition to anxiety, I very much have ADHD as well. So sometimes the hardest thing is just getting started. So the Pomodoro technique helps with that. You pick a task, you set a timer, you agree to work on the task for that amount of time. I believe it's 25 minutes, although I've seen people do 15 minutes as well. And then when the timer goes off, you kind of stop and record your progress and check in with yourself and go, okay, do I have the capacity to do this for another 15 or 25 minutes? Can I keep going now that I'm in the groove? Or am I just not feeling it today and I need to try this again tomorrow? And most of the time, if you just get started, you're good to go. You can do a need, want, hope list for the week. You can try a to be list. So I want to be positive, be powerful, productive, proud. You can, of course, do just a classic to-do list. We love that. And I love that they've used the stickers here. You can also do a to-do list, but switch it up a little bit and do a to-do list. So writing down things as you complete them rather than the things that you need to do. So it feels really different at the end of the week when you see everything you've already done. And we tend to write down more little things when we do a to-do list as well, instead of just focusing on the big things. So you kind of realize, oh, I did actually do a lot this week. I just wasn't giving myself credit for it before, right? We love a bingo here at Silk and Sonder. So if you want to bingoify, maybe that's a new word. If you want to bingoify your to-do list, feel free. Of course, you can use different areas for your to-dos. You can also use different areas for your weekly major three. So learn, lean into, let go of, happy at home, happy at work, happy with family, left brain, right brain, no brain, school, self, family. It's really popular to kind of put these into different categories. You can also use your weekly major three to support how you feel. We talked about kind of partnering this over with the to-dos, but you can write out your weekly major three to support how you feel. And then you could take it a step further and also connect it to your to-dos, right? You can just connect dots all through the journal there. So you can do that if you'd like to. You can just pick goals, commitments, accountabilities, or you could try to do a stop list or a don't list. And as always, if this doesn't speak to you and you need to change it up like I did, right? Like I'm doing my affirmations here. If you need to make this something different this week or try something new, feel free to do that. We've got lots of different ideas there. So I will cycle through all of these slides for you while you are working on your pages, and then we'll move on to the next section together. All right. Hopefully you figured out the best way to use these sections for you. We are now going to hop on down to our habits and activities section. And this is another area that I'm kind of switching up, and I am incorporating that personalized life coach beta stuff in there because it also comes with breath work for me each week. And this is another section that I don't necessarily really use in the weekly all that often. I really like to focus on my monthly habits. Sometimes I use it in the weekly, and I use it at the beginning of the year to help establish a sleep routine, and that was super helpful. If I can't get my sleep in order in the next week or so, I may have to go back to that. But for now, I'm going to put my breath work here and see if I can try to focus in on that and doing that every day because I think it will really help with my anxiety. I know that meditating helps me a lot, so I'm sure that that breath work will help as well. So I'm hoping if it's front and center like this in the journal, that I won't forget to take advantage of that. But you can do whatever speaks to you here. Yes, we do have that, habits wheel at the front of the journal for the month, as you all know. But the nice thing about the weekly spread is that you can kind of switch it up a little bit more than you do in that monthly section. And you do not have to fill in every line that is here. You can just fill in a couple. You can add more lines if you're trying to build a routine and you need a little bit more space or another thing to tick off there. But you can also just do a couple. You can set a goal for how often you want to do something or just track it and see. And also, it's a good reminder, it's a habits and activities tracker, right? So not another to-do list, but just anything that you are maybe wanting to track for this week. I use this to track some acid reflux things when I was trying to get that under control. I was like, did I have coffee today? Did I get a good night's sleep? Did I take any kind of antacid medicine today or did I not? So I was kind of using that to track that here as well. Not something I wanted to track for the whole month, right? Just something I wanted to track for the week. So this can be a good section for that. You can also track how often you don't do something if you're trying to kick the habit on something. I am a terrible habitual nail biter. And so I did that one time here and it helped tremendously. I get them done now. So they are protected by a layer of thing I can't destroy. Otherwise, I would probably still be biting them. But you can also say no thank you to this section. You could completely repurpose it like I did. Or you can just say, I need to take a break and just put some fun stickers or a good affirmation here for the week, whatever is going to speak to you. You don't want this to feel like more work. You always want your journal to feel like it is supporting you in some way. And then we've got some daily little self-care check-in ideas here as well. So I'll throw on a quick song for you all to think about this section. Let us know what you're writing down here. And then we'll move on to our next section together. One quick thing I forgot to mention, in this example here in the top leftish, they have unsubscribe from negative accounts or add positive ones. I like that. Somebody in the chat was saying they try to be mindful about their social media content. Actually, Kimberly, this may have been your example. I'm not sure that I pulled. from Sonder Club, but I thought that that was a great idea. I've seen people doing that. She said, yes, it was. I've seen people doing that where they're trying to like better cultivate what is in their feed so that it's a little bit more positive experience when they are scrolling. So I thought that was a good little habit activity thing there. So we are now going to hop over to page 47, starting with that section titled Meal Plan. Now, this is something that does get repurposed a lot just because it takes up a lot of real estate in the journal. Doesn't mean that having a meal plan is a bad thing. It can be a really great thing. A lot of people use this for meal planning or for meal tracking, or they'll use it to plan one specific meal. Like a lot of our members use this just for dinner because that always seems to be kind of the bigger event, right? Or the thing that they feel like they need to plan for. But for me, I use this for like work meetings to kind of make sure I'm not dropping the ball anywhere, and having this with my personal schedule on the to-do side really helps make sure I'm not like double booking myself. So that's what I use it for. But I don't have work meetings on Saturdays and Sundays. So I'm writing down the manifestation exercise that came from the self-care beta. So that I can have that front and center and make sure that I take some time next week to again, actually do that and lean into those things. So that is what I'm going to do there. But we have all kinds of examples and things here. Somebody just decided to do kind of like their 3 priorities for the day. You've got different people that have kind of turned this into a little like journaling prompt section. They've got like some different things that they've written there. Again, of course, a meal plan, meal tracker. We've got some other really good repurposes there. And then some more really good things here, words of the day, victory inventory, the meal plan for my soul, that's creative. And then this one was a newer one too, the mental release to-do list. So, you know, what's really weighing on you when you're looking at your to-dos today, what is actually going to make that lift happen and feel better. So I'll click through these slides for you while you think about what you want to use this section for. And then we'll move into our last little sections together. All right. So our last few sections here are the Mind Body Health Plan and the shopping list. And I'm combining these together because what I've started seeing in Sonder Club is that more and more people are kind of using these sections in the same way. So I use them independently. Like I always do a little bingo in my Mind Body Health Plan. And I love that the monthly sticker pack always comes with one to make it easy for me one week. And then I use my shopping list as a shopping list because if I don't, I absolutely will forget to buy it. And if I don't have a place to write it down, I will panic thinking that I will forget to buy it. And then I just like impulse buy everything. So it's really important for me to have that space to come back to for that shopping list. But members love to use these sections in a variety of ways. I love this little collage with like the stickers and like the colors and stuff, so fun. If you are using the Mind Body Health plan for Mind Body Health, make sure that you're carving out some time to reset. This can be a good space to check in with yourself for like reflections. You can also focus on specific goals, like this person has walking and weights interchangeably. And then you've also got like, again, more check-ins. How did I nourish myself? I like these weekly reminders that somebody put in the shopping list section. You could do a T-chart of I feel and I need. There's another fun bingo here, but this one was in the shopping section instead of the Mind Body Health plan. So set it up in whatever way works for you. And when in doubt, put a fun sticker. Or I always like this, somebody uses it for their washi tape scraps. I love that. It's like a little abstract art piece every week. That's so fun to me. And if none of these examples are speaking to you, we have a whole list of ways that you can use this and repurpose this here in the center. So I'll put on a quick little song and then flip through these slides for you. Alrighty, well, if you can believe it, let's get to wrap up our time together. Our last little section is the I am loving section, and I would love to see what you are loving in the chat. If you're somebody that does this at the end of the week, you do not have to fill it in your journal now, but I'd love to see what you're loving in the chat right in this moment. In my journal, I wrote that I'm loving that I'm feeling better. So that is my currently I'm loving. But thank you all so much for being here with us. We would love to see pictures of your weekly planner if you feel comfortable sharing them in Sonder Club. You know that that's where we get all of these great examples is from all of you sharing in there. So please make sure that you do that if you feel comfortable. And then you saw me incorporate a lot of this personalized coaching plan into my weekly setup this week. Meha does have a personal ask, which is if you're able to participate in that program, they've got like a coupon that you can get a percentage off to participate. They would love any and all feedback from anybody that can participate. But if it's not your jam or if you're not able to, no worries. If you don't mind sharing her post on LinkedIn, she would really appreciate it. And these are a lot of the things along with what you saw in my setup that you can find in the app and things that they are, sorry, not in the app, but in this feature that they are bringing forward and hoping to kind of change and update and stuff as things go along. And you can learn more at the links Maya is dropping in the chat. As always, we're still doing our Refer a Friend program. If you can upgrade to an annual subscription, it can save you some monies. So just something to think about, especially, holiday season will be here before you know it. So make sure you put that on your list. And then be sure that you fill out the survey that you get in the email either today or tomorrow, or you can use the links that Maya will put in the chat. The HQ team does look at all of those and looks at your feedback, so definitely let them know what you think. Maya will also pop that YouTube link in the chat as well. So this social, along with most of our others, are recorded and they'll be up there on that channel in a few days for you to go back and replay if you need to, or if you ever miss a social, you can go back. Or if you're just curious, there's like 800 Social's almost on there now. So if you ever just want to go and listen to a social, it's there for you. And I just dropped the playlist in the chat as well. So I hope you all have a fabulous rest of your Sunday. And thank you all for being here. Until next time, be good to each other, and we'll see you all in Sonder Club.